Everyone's always bitching about the debt, but we just keep spending money. Like, no business survives like that. That's just common sense.
USDebtClock.org. Oh my God, look at how much money.
I don't understand how that works.
That's so insane.
When you realize that the money is a scam, that is one of those initial unplugged moments from the Matrix.
It's a giant Ponzi scheme.
It's a Ponzi scheme. Why does it keep going up if we can't afford it?
And when you come to the realization that the US dollar is in fact the largest scam in human history, that really sort of short circuits your brain.
They'll accuse the US government of making money out of thin air. Maybe we do, but we're the US government.
The fiat dollar standard, the financial system has been totally built on that system, and it was doomed to fail.
Our money has been stolen through this process of inflation. If it weren't for the laws, the banks are doing essentially what you and I would go to jail for doing.
And that is the source of so much of the psychological, financial, and moral malaise I think we see in the world.
That whole debt burden is over 600 trillion. So the 600 trillion is insolvent, and it's massively insolvent.
And it's not just the United States that's in trouble, it's the whole world.
What the f? We owe it to ourselves?
God. Have you ever heard that explained?
No.
First off, it's the issue of central planning. So often there are many conservatives who believe that central planning and farming and doing anything in the economy outside of money is a disaster. They say, well, look at the results of central planning in Russia. Look at the central planning in any socialist nation, and they reject it outright, and I believe correctly.
Central banking is straight out of Marx's 1848 Manifesto to the Communist Party. Measure number 5 talks about the centralization of cash and credit to make communism work. Central banking is Marxist.
But in the same sense, they reject central planning in every other area, but wholeheartedly endorse the same concept with central planning in money.
So the proposition that central planning will work is the proposition that you can substitute one expert mind for 1 million distributed expert minds. And that's just not the case.
Which system is better is the question. 5 guys at the central bank deciding the creation allocation of the entire money supply, or 5 million loan officers on the ground checking all these hundreds of millions of loan applications.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious which system is going to be better.
One of the things that has happened all around the world in the 20th century was that all sorts of countries have tried central planning. And yet when you take the power out of their hands and return it to the market, then all the hundreds of millions of people usually end up with a higher rate of growth and a rapid decline in poverty.
Actually get the government out of the way and let there be a real market. Things work better when you have a free market and there's real competition.
The full power of centralized government. This was the very thing the founding fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose.
If you have a central bank, you're half communist right out of the gate because half of every transaction is money.
Marxist money, yeah. Man, it's like hidden in plain sight. You know, it's like it's right there. Everyone uses money. Everyone thinks through money. We think about money. Everybody likes money. But like, you've got to just take the time to dig into what it actually is.
I happen to believe and accept the ideas of the Austrian School of Economics, as Mises in particular explained, that the business cycle is precisely caused by central planning of money, and that the booms and busts are inevitable.
The Fed is kind of like an arsonist who sets fires, and then once the fire gets going, he changes clothes into a firefighter's uniform and pretends to be putting out the fire by putting more gasoline on it.
Getting into these wars, giving countries this money, and we get nothing in return. Trillions we spent in Afghanistan and Iraq.
So what's the answer to that? Why did they do that?
I have no idea.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The second major reason why I reject the notion of paper money is the issue of power.
It gives you enormous economic and therefore also political power, and power over everything, and power over the media, politicians.
Yeah, it's like as if purchasing power is the most fundamental power that you can buy. Political power, you can buy narrative power, ideological power.
You can buy your military, you know.
But it's an ominous power. There is no other power greater than the power over money, the power to create and contract the money supply, the power to control the purchasing power of your money.
Clinging to that system changes free markets, changes everything, and you concentrate power in the state. And so that currency wars to trade wars to real wars is essentially that.
When you have an institution of currency counterfeiting, you are no longer bounded by your own balance sheet when you go to war. You don't have to just go to war on your own resources. You can now pillage Commonwealth and pilfer the savings of society as a whole before you go bankrupt.
Why do wars last 5 years? Because if the government's printing money as fast as they can, it takes about 5 years to suck all the economic energy out of the society.
Because now government can just finance themselves by resorting to the money printer. And so they continue to create more inflation and gain more and more power.
Throughout history, this has proven to be the most sought after monopolistic power of man.
169 million people murdered by the state in the 20th century? How many bodies do we need? How many bodies do we need to know that none of the isms work other than individualism?
We fought a catastrophic war in Afghanistan that literally killed hundreds of thousands of people, cost trillions of dollars. Imagine if they couldn't print the money for that war. Imagine if they had to tax the American people every month. Think that thing would have lasted 20 years?
Inflation is a disease. It's a dangerous disease for a society that, if allowed to rage unchecked, can destroy a society. And we have many such examples.
Money is so noble a medium that it does not compete with guns, and it does not make terms with brutality. It will not permit a country to survive as half property, half loot.
I believe closely associated with this is the issue of morality as well.
People are increasingly desperate. This hamster wheel keeps getting faster. Prices are going up through the debasement of currency. Wages are staying stagnant and flat. So the low and middle class are being taxed harder and harder. The rich are getting richer. The poor are getting poorer. I think we're debasing civilizational integrity as we debase the money.
Is it any more moral to dilute the value of your purchasing power of the money you hold in your wallet than it is for the farmer to dilute the milk supply with water?
This is what happens when you have a quantity of something and then you add more to it. This is dilution. The principle is so simple that a child can understand.
A conventional view of inflation as CPI understates the human misery. It's a massive shift of wealth from the working class to the property class. It's a massive shift of power from the people to the government.
The federal government, unlike individuals, can simply issue more money. As the old saying goes, there's no free lunch. If you could just issue massive amounts of money without negative consequences, why don't we just take that to the limit and make everyone a trillionaire? Well, they tried that in Venezuela. How'd that work out?
What are the actual social and economic consequences of that money printing? Widening wealth disparities, increased political polarization, more bombing of people around the world, cultural degradation.
It is for this reason that the people have lost trust in their government, trust in the banks, trust in business, trust in themselves, and that we are a nation of distrust.
When you see corruption being rewarded and honesty becoming a self-sacrifice, you may know that your society is doomed.
What we would not permit is the government to initiate force against people who have hurt no one. We would not give the government or the majority or any minority the right to take the life or the property of others.
We printed $6 trillion in 2020. The average annual U.S. salary is $60,000. That's 100 million years stolen. 2 million human lives worth of productive labor.
The Federal Reserve is supposed to be the expert, and their official view is we don't know what money is. That's been used essentially to hide the real answers.
I think that we must address in general terms the issue of the origin of money, because economically and historically, paper is not money. It can't be money. It's only money because we're forced to use it.
What it takes to develop the concept of money is this path-dependent process of going from some small portion of the social group valuing a collectible, and it becomes a store of value asset. And then once it's a store of value asset for a majority of people, it becomes a medium of exchange. You can settle trade in that unit. And then once most trade is done in that unit, it's the unit of account. A path-dependent process of a collectible becoming money.
That's how money emerges in the marketplace. It has nothing to do with government other than the fact that they monopolize it and try to control it to control people.
The problem is, in the modern era, we use fiat currency as money. It's a store of value with a half-life. How long does it take for the money to lose half its economic energy? Well, that's what we'll call the inflation rate. If you actually have $1 million and you hold it for 100 years, the dollar supply increases 7% a year on average over 100 years, which means that you end up losing 99.9% of the $1 million.
$100 bill in 1998 would not buy as much as a $20 bill would have bought in 1960. So the thievery that goes on through inflation is huge.
If all of us were stranded on a small island and we had absolutely nothing else, no trade, and we were expected to survive, we would have to get our food and build our houses and make our tools. How many of you would accept the notion if we had the one individual to arrive on the beach and he said, I'll solve all your problems, I'm going to create wealth for you. I have this little thing called a printing press, and I'm going to print up Federal Reserve notes. How many would trust the individual? He would probably be thrown off the island for coming up with a scandalous idea.
It's just really important for people to understand what inflation even means. The number that matters if you want to either get wealthy or stay wealthy or live a decent life is the rate of expansion of the currency supply or more. And so if you're not growing your cash flow, growing your assets via that number, you're getting poorer.
Gold, well, it does a lot better than fiat. It always gets centralized, and then you either go to war to steal somebody else's gold or impose your monetary system on their gold reserves, or you change the rules of gold because it's centralized. You're dealing with an abstract piece of paper on top of it. You're not actually dealing in the currency of gold.
Are we based on gold or not?
No, we haven't been on gold for many years. 71, Nixon suspended the gold standard, and we've never been back on it since then.
So our currency was actually backed by an actual gold.
Ever since then, we have not been on a gold standard. They can print as much money as they want to with no limit.
And this is what I think has really started to deteriorate the monetary system.
Now, fourth, one of the fundamental reasons why I believe we must have restraint on the creation of credit, and that is if you truly believe in a free society. If you do, that means you believe that government should be limited to the protection of your liberty, not to the transfer of wealth.
If we could make you dictator, would you abolish the Fed?
Yes.
You would.
The Fed represented wonderful hopes, but we've had so many programs that represented wonderful hopes that ended in disaster.
Has monetary policy ever done any good? I think it has done only harm.
And what we need today in the United States of America more than anything is the separation of money and the state.
The paper money system is there to enhance those who believe in the transfer of wealth. You can transfer just so much wealth with taxation and the people rebel.
So we believe we live in a democracy, we believe we have rule of law, but money is superordinate to rule of law. And so if money is broken, laws get changed to the favor of who accesses the money.
When money ceases to be the tool by which men deal with one another, then men become the tools of men.
The situation is even worse than it seems, because if most Americans and the rest of the world were to become aware of this farce, confidence in your currency would be lost, the dollar would fall, and the Western civilization with it.
Because what happens is, this asset inflation is a Ponzi scheme. It will continue as long as you create more credit for more asset purchases, and that usually happens. So for years this can go on.
Once you start printing money, you either have to keep printing it and keep running that Ponzi scheme until the currency hyperinflates, because if you stop at any point, you're going to get this catastrophic deflation.
That's enough to wipe out entirely the banking system.
This is just the story of civilization. So what you have is you have a whole world that goes through this currency collapse. Is this new? No, it's not new.
What began as a tool to facilitate trade has become an instrument of control, ensnaring humanity in a system where autonomy is bartered for the illusion of security. And all of it is sustained by the fragile belief that this cycle will never break.
Why are we here? If Bitcoin had not been invented, this would be a pretty downer podcast. I'm just telling you that, the world's got economic problems. The government's going to debase the currency, spend it on things you disagree with, and you're going to be poor. And that's how it ends. But Maxwell gave us electricity. Newton gave us Newtonian physics. Einstein gave us relativity. Satoshi gave us money.
Bitcoin is a new form of money. So the natural extension to that line of inquiry is, well, what is money?